Welcome to the Fruitful Dove channel. This is our first video, and so my name is Argos. I'm with my co-host Mina.
Yes. Hi.
So we wanted to start off with Mina's testimony because Mina has a very powerful testimony with how she came to know the Lord and the impact that it had on her, and the stark contrast with how her life was before knowing the Lord and after. And so we named our channel The Fruitful Dove because being fruitful, especially in the fruits of the Spirit, is something that's central to walking with the Lord and Christian life. And that's done through the Spirit, which is represented by the dove, all the way from the beginning in Genesis when the dove represents in the flood, the end of the flood with Noah, and also in the Gospels when the Spirit descends on Christ like a dove. And so, hence the name. And so, I think we're ready to get into it. Are you ready, Mina?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, perfect. So, the first question that I have is just about the background of your life. How was your life before Christ?
So, I was raised as a Buddhist. I always felt lost in life. I was constantly depressed. It's also because I had a broken family. It's always like arguments like 24/7. I felt hopeless. My life was meaningless. But yes, I felt empty inside. It didn't help that I was also attracted to toxic guys. I had a relationship with an Arab guy who was a Muslim, and he made me realize why porn and fornication was a sin. He basically cheated on me and made me turn to God because it was just like something very traumatic. That's what drew me closer to God because I now realize why porn and fornication was a sin.
Right. And so I'm hearing that definitely negative experiences with the people close to you, for example, with your family, it drove you further away from just the secular, materialistic, or the Buddhist mindset. And being with that relationship, it drove you away from being attracted at all to Islam and that way of life. And so, in what other ways did your family's relationship with Christianity, if you know, if they had any perception of Christianity, what was it, and how notably did it affect you in any other ways?
So my my grandfather was actually raised as a Catholic, but he converted to Buddhism after he met my grandma. So for marriage, he converted and he kind of gave up all that, and it just that didn't go down to the kids as well. So like my mom would just be raised in a Buddhism lifestyle, just kind of more like worshiping our own ancestors or like family members, like dead family members. And they would often pray and they would ask for guidance. They would offer like foods, like offerings, that kind of way to just, communicate with the dead and just to either get rich or like have good luck, whatever it is. It's a cultural thing. It's a huge thing in Vietnam. So
Right. Well, at what point did you know that you needed to find God? What were the moments in your life where those markers where you could tell that you were more and more in need of God?
yeah, so after I went through that traumatic experience of going through a breakup, being in that difficult situation, I always wanted to isolate myself because I was raised as a Buddhist. I looked up to monks and I would think about like, okay, like if I'm gonna be living a life free from suffering, free from any attachment, you kind of have to be a monk. And that's the goal in Buddhism, as most people, is that like if you're like as holy as them, you'd be willing to give up everything, shave your head, just live a monk lifestyle. Mainly meditation. That's the main thing. It was the gateway to enlightenment. It was the gateway to wisdom, to peace, all that good stuff. So often, like after going through that traumatic experience of being abandoned and being cheated on, and I kind of was isolating myself. I would go into nature. I would meditate. It just I did felt peace, but it wasn't enough. Something felt missing, like the meaning of life. Because, like, what's the point if I'm going to just live and be a monk and just be free from attachment? And then something felt off. It just didn't make sense because They look at life as something that shouldn't have been created, like an accident, I guess you could say. They believe that life is cyclical, the universe is cyclical, like it's always been there. You know, you born and you die, and it's always been there. There's no beginning. But as we know, that's a false belief because the Big Bang existed. The beginning, I guess you could say. Scientifically, it's proven that there was a beginning, and it didn't make sense. Just started to doubt Buddhism beliefs. Me kind of tracing back what I went through and what was wrong, what was right. So it got, you know, I was putting the puzzle pieces together and I realized that marriage is good. It's not bad. In Buddhism, it's looked down and it's like a trap and it's
Because
bad.
it's an attachment and a big one.
It's an attachment. Yes, yes. It's a form of attachment. So I came to the conclusion that marriage is good and fornication and porn is bad. And that was a new, like, I guess, like, it was the key revelation for me because that's the main thing that stopped me from giving my life to Christ because I didn't agree with the law to begin with. That's why I had my doubts. And so after that, I started just going to church. Didn't matter if I had the same beliefs or not. I was completely curious about it now. Even if God doesn't exist, like I still wanted to believe just like they do.
Hmm.
And I started research more. I started exploring, and I that's like kind of the beginning of everything. It was like finding community. Like that's what I needed. That's what I confided in, just church and community and volunteering. After being told to constantly pray and I guess to repent as well. I think that's what had happened that night. I started to cry nonstop. I started to pray nonstop. I just wanted to cry myself to death eventually. I didn't expect what would happen next. And I just started growling. I started growling. I started to scream on like the top of my lungs. I That was when I couldn't control my body. It was nothing that I've ever experienced in my entire life. And people would say like, "Oh, it's just you're depressed, you're starting to have anxiety." I don't think that would be in my mind because or if it is like anxiety because you have to keep in mind at the time I still have my doubts about God and if he exists or not. And I believe that might be before I did get into new age after Buddhism wasn't doing it for me. I started to get into tarot cards, you know, finding all the answers. The new age believe in like we are all co-creators and that we're all technically God and we have our part in it and like there's like a higher being or I guess you could say the universe is just like in control and you can do tarot cards and ask them for guidance and like the truth I guess you could say and like whether he's the one or not and yeah so I think that's how I got possessed because that it's against God as stated in the Bible all that it's against God and I believe that's how I got possessed. And the day after that night that I started to lose control of my body, I was going through a deliverance. I went to church afterwards and I started to growl again. I started to scream. The elders were trying to deliver me from this demon and it was like a spiritual battle like and then people were freaking out. They had to call the cops and afterwards I was hospitalized and after being in the hospital they had my brain scanned and my brain was perfectly normal. There's no issue, no, I wasn't taking any drugs or anything because they had me pee in a cup just to confirm that. And they afterwards I talked to, I guess you could say a therapist, I believe, like a medical therapist. He diagnosed me with anxiety. Like, oh, your brain is just very stressed. It's like you're in a state of fight or flight mode. And because your brain doesn't see the problem in front of you, it just kind of freaks out. It doesn't know whether to fight or flight. And that's why you lost control. And so they prescribed me with sleeping pills afterwards and I started to take them because of all the doubts that were like implementing in my mind, like, oh, the doctors, the therapists, my mom, like, oh, you're just stressed, you know, it's just in your mind. You're starting going to church and they're like brainwashing you and you start to believe in it. And I was still, even at the time when I was going through all that, I still have my doubts though. It just That's not what I expect to happen. I thought I would just cry eventually. My heart would give out and die because that's what I expected. That didn't happen. And so afterwards, I just continued as usual, continued my daily life and just denied him in a way because of the doubts that people were implementing in my mind. And I was like, okay, maybe it is just me. Maybe it's just because I started to believe in God and all these things are happening. And it's my fault. It's always my fault. I thought back of me feeling that Holy Spirit because that night, that's when I felt that warmth, a sense of love and peace that I never felt before. And it's the same thing was at the church. It's like after they would start praying to me, like it was just like I start to feel that love. And it's not something I've never really experienced. Like, what should I do? Like, should I give my life completely to God or just continue my life as usual? And I didn't want to go back. I needed more of that love, that light that I was getting inside of me. And so I started praying and then completely giving my life to him. And then I just felt that warmness again. And I started crying, weeping of like happy tears. And it's just, and the presence, his presence is so strong. And it's that one thing that I was looking for, like that true love that you can't find in Buddhism. You can't find it after meditating or the new age. Like you can't like astral project and like somehow you'll like find your peace or happiness. That's not, that's false. So yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, and so I'm more curious about what do you remember experiencing with your emotions and your thoughts while you were having that really possession experience and deliverance experience at church. I remember you did mention to me once how you felt the weight of other people's sins around you and you hated them for it. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So it was, I guess I could say I could sense other people's sin. I guess the demons can sense their sins and what they've done and like all those dark things and very negative things. Like I would say a lot of dark and negative things. I don't quite remember now, but I was at the time, I was aware. Like I was kind of like stuck in my body, being aware, but not being in control
Hmm.
and I was twitching like crazy, like a zombie, I guess you could say, like just like I was just growling, like
Yeah.
it was crazy.
And so, how would you describe the difference between how you are now and how you were back then?
So not only do I receive this sense of love and peace that I've never had before and that I was seeking all my life, I was also receiving guidance from God now because I can hear God more clearly now than ever before. After reading the Bible, spending time with Him, being in nature, it's just things that I wouldn't have known. Someone I'm close to, God would tell me that I should contact him and that he's like in a dark place just as you are right now and he needs you and he hasn't been reading his Bible, you have. And I was doubting. I was like, no, I don't know. I need confirmation. And he started to move my body, starts, like my hands started to reach, and I would kind of resist, sort of, and I would just click the call button. And then next thing you know, lo and behold, he was going through a dark place. His family member has been hospitalized, and he also confirmed that he hasn't been reading his Bible either. A lot of those coincidences that I've never would have known unless God was telling me that. So it's like my thoughts, but not technically my thoughts. And sometimes it would repeat over and over just like, hey, like I'm speaking, like it's not me that's thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's how I.
That's great. And so, what's something that you look forward to the most in your walk with God going forward?
I'm looking forward to just receiving his blessings, perhaps a godly marriage. A godly marriage is different than a normal marriage. A godly marriage is someone that you are meant to be with and that he won't cheat on you or have like a huge sin against you, I guess. And just receiving that love and being happy and just being fulfilled and complete because that's all I wanted like this whole time. Nothing more than that.
Great. Well, Mina, thank you so much for sharing your testimony.
Yes.
Very wonderful. And so that's going to wrap it up for this video. And for anyone that's watching, thank you so much for joining us in the beginning of this channel here. We hope that any of it can speak to you, that can be relatable to you. And so we'll see you next video.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.